So this is funny. I just completed and recorded a video of myself yesterday talking about how I forgot my A Course in Miracles lesson. I believe it was lesson 34. I can see peace instead of this, which is one of my favorites. Frequently actually pops up on my radar in my daily practice, and it's very, very pertinent nowadays with the world in a massive and deep transformation. And so my intention yesterday was to actually continue with the same lesson 34, to repeat it, because when you forget your lessons, that's what you do. Well, if you're moved to do so. Sometimes in the past, I've actually have gone several days forgetting the same lesson over and over and over. But anyway, the interesting part actually is today. So this is a new day, and I pulled a new lesson. And the lesson is actually 64, which says, let me not forget my function in the world. Now, it's a far cry from, wagging finger and telling me how I forgot my lesson, but I have seen this pattern many times. It's almost kind of like a gentle wink at me, acknowledging that I do tend to forget. And so it's almost like an evidence for a dialogue going back and forth between me and my higher self, or the Holy Spirit, or whichever symbol you're using in your practice. Moments like that always make me laugh. And this is not the first time when I actually have this sense of there's a conversation, two-way conversation going on. It's not just me pulling a lesson, a random, well, what it would appear a random lesson every day. uh, just for clarity, I did in 2014 and 2015, I actually took 18 months to complete all the lessons from A Course in Miracles. And I did go through them in a very orderly way. The only thing different was that, again, I had days, I think there were lessons particularly difficult that I stayed with them for a week because simply I kept forgetting them. So it took me 18 months, but I did go through the lessons in a regular manner, in the natural sequence, the way they are presented in the workbook. And after that, so in the following 10 years and more, I have been actually pulling them at random. So it feels like a conversation between me and the Holy Spirit. I tend to work with the Holy Spirit a lot in my mind. I remember one day I got sick. So it's that first day when you realize that you're down with a head cold and your throat is sore and you're like, oh no. And there's a lesson, I don't remember the numbers, but you can find those numbers of the lessons. There's a lesson that says sickness is a defense against the truth. And so that day, I was a little bit reluctant to pull the lesson because I was like, okay, oh no, I'm going to get that one, right? Wrong. And this is where another realization dawned on me, that the Holy Spirit doesn't play the game the way we do, or the way we expect it. There's no finger wagging, there's no beating the dead horse or circling around the bush. The way the Holy Spirit works through these lessons is it's always productive and it's always inspiring. And time and again, I'm in awe how much the Holy Spirit actually understands me better than myself. In moments when I am sick and I tend to metaphorically wag my finger at me that, okay, you didn't take care of yourself, you got angry. Nowadays, I tend to get colds or flu or respiratory bugs whenever I let my emotions go splashing, anger particularly. So I have learned to spot my anger quickly and diffuse it. Not suppress it. Suppression doesn't work, but more like diffuse it, in a sense like breathing, getting into my heart, looking at the big picture. And a lot of that wisdom actually came from my experience with the lessons from A Course in Miracles, where I would get that perspective that the Holy Spirit taught me, that I'm never angry about the reason I think. So I would pause and say, okay, if I'm so angry, why am I so angry? And that is why my restless and creative mind enjoys that exercise and grabs the idea and runs with it. It's like, okay, and it becomes a puzzle. So it's almost kind of deflection from my anger until it subsides. So I like to deflect. So I go and search for the answer of my puzzle. Why am I really angry? And so it has helped. But the bottom line is that in the moments when I slip, and I do get sometimes cold or one of those flu-like symptoms, always starting with a sore throat, my first reaction is like, what did I do wrong? And how did I let myself happen that way? And I must have been angry. Oh my goodness. And I didn't eat, and I was this and I was that, and I overworked, and the moon was in Leo and I forgot. I've written and spoken so much about moon in Leo because my sun is in Leo, my Mercury is in Leo, midheaven is in Leo. So Leo, and Leo itself is a fiery sign. And so whenever the moon goes through that part of the sky, I tend to be very creative, very restless. I feel like invincible, like the Wonder Woman, and I can take on new responsibilities, start new ideas, and overstretch. So a lot of times the overstretching part gets me over that the overboard, and then I get the sick symptoms. But anyway, circling back, when it happened once, I forgot how it happened, but I was ill, and I would have given myself that lesson, sickness is a defense against the truth. But what do you think the Holy Spirit said? I can't remember exactly the lesson, but that was not it. It's somewhere in my journals, and one of these days I'm just gonna go meticulously through my journals and find what that lesson. But the lesson was actually more about, in line with the lessons where I'm going to see the peace of God, and the peace of God resides in me. Or there's one lesson in which it talks about the hush of the peace of heavens. It was more about comfort and not going and analyzing why you're sick and what you did wrong, because you know what, the Holy Spirit probably knows better than me why I did what I did and what got me sick. But it is not productive. Which I'm reminded of a video of Ken Wapnick, which is one of my heroes. When I grow up, I want to be Ken. And that's what many years later I actually came across his video talking exactly about that lesson. Ken was saying, don't go tell people sickness is defense against the truth when they're sick. It's like kicking, a sick puppy, or, hurting someone who already has hurt themselves. So Ken was actually very vocal and clear about that. I don't know if I would have heard that message before my personal experience with the Holy Spirit, but it was a validation of my experience also, that we tend to judge ourselves a lot, and ultimately it's not productive. And in my experience with my work with the Holy Spirit and with the Course in Miracles lesson is that it never works that way. The Holy Spirit never works like that. And it's always about kindness first and acceptance to yourself, especially for those of us with very strong empathy and compassion traits. We tend to, and a lot of times we come from culture that trained us and extolled the virtue of giving without recognizing that we already give. And so being raised in such culture, we ended up naturally way beyond the middle line, which is the healthy line that leads to freedom and heaven, as the voice of the A Course in Miracles book says. And so it's been a lesson, and continues to be a lesson for me, about that middle line, how much I give and how much I give to myself. And so that experience with the Holy Spirit always reminds me that be kind, including to yourself. If you made a mistake, it's okay. If you are going to make efforts to forgive the mistake of those around you that you love, well, that means you can forgive your own mistakes too.